Recording in progress.
It is now 6 o'clock. I would like to call to order the Richland County Administrative and Finance Committee meeting to order for April the 22nd, 2025. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Pugh,
Here.
Little,
Here.
Livingston, Weaver,
Here.
Aline.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Item number 2 on the agenda is approval of the minutes from March the 25th, 2025. I entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Little, Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Aline.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. Item number 3 on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Mr. Brown, is there any changes or deletions?
No recommended changes, Mr. Chair.
All right. If not, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I move that the agenda be adopted as published.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Aline.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. So on to item number 4A, items for information and discussion. Item A, grants and community outreach update in the emergency solutions grant and community development block grant projects. That was a lot to say. Mr. Brown?
There was no commas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. What you have before you is an opportunity to get some feedback from our team on really the status of the grant programs that we have. So we're going to have Ms. Callison, who many of you have seen earlier this week with a number of our community programs that we've launched. You've had an opportunity to participate in today, maybe the Hopkins Pool Park. Maybe yesterday you had a chance to participate in the Transitions Homeless Center and the updates that were made there. But what you're going to hear today is, again, some additional information just to give you some insights as to what's happening with the funding that we receive and how our team is making use of that throughout our community. So, Ms. Callison, the floor is yours. If you could recognize her, Mr. Chair.
Allison, you reckon?
Thank you. From Sunkist, it's because we were all enjoying that Hopkins sunshine today. Like Mr. Brown said, community development, our team is the specialized team that really, we just do the HUD tickets. So, the big one is the CDBG. We also get a few other ones. And so today I'm going to give you an update on our smallest award. It's called. I'm not on. Hello. I did think that didn't sound normal. So I'm going to kind of give you an update on the smallest and newest HUD award we're getting, which is called the Emergency Solutions Grant, or ESG. And then I'm also going to give you an update on kind of what's going on with CDBG right now. So the Emergency Solutions Grant is a very narrow grant that is only for nonprofits who are doing homeless services, and they have to be a member of what's called the Continuum of Care. So that's that continuum run by United Way. And we got a surprise ESG grant. We weren't expecting it when we got our HUD allocation letter 2 years ago. It just was 150,000 ESG. And even our HUD rep was kind of surprised. And I said, what is ESG and what do we have to do? And so when you get a new award, you have to build
policies and procedures, and you have to kind of make it a whole thing. So what we ended up doing is that historically in the state, all of the ESG money went to the state of South Carolina. It wasn't coming to the counties. And so when HUD decided to give us a tiny allocation, it meant that the state got a smaller piece of the pie. So we talked with all the providers who were used to getting that money from the state, and they all got less money that year because we were sitting on a piece of the pie. And so what we worked out with HUD was essentially using our money to supplement what they got from the state. So they didn't have to apply directly to Richland County. They went through their normal state application process, so they didn't have to do 2 applications. And whatever percentage they got out of the state allocation, we just mirrored it in ours. So we tried to make it very seamless for them. So if you flip to the back, I think it's on y'all's page like 18 or something. I don't know the way y'all's are ordered, but there is a table that shows you the breakout from 2023 and 2024. And you can see the nonprofits, you'll be familiar with most of them. They're running shelters or they're running programs that are keeping people from getting into a homeless situation. So I just wanted you to be aware that that's kind of where the funds broke out. We're in the contracting process now. The first set of funding, they're going to expend by this September. And then the second set of funding, they have another year to expend that. One thing that I do want to say, just for your kind of knowledge, is that about $25,000 worth of the money is going, well, really it's 50, but just for this summer, 25,000 is going into what's called homeless prevention. So that's rental assistance and utility assistance. It's going, most of it to Salvation Army. So they're about to get $20,000 from us, sitting into a pool that anybody that calls that qualifies can get that assistance. And the cooperative ministry is getting another portion. So if you have a constituent who's struggling with rental, paying rent or paying utilities, send them to Salvation Army or cooperative because they have money now from us to handle that. And so when we just went through the public comment period, that was a lot of what we heard. People were just like, we just need help with budget, like how to just keep our lights on. So we're gonna kind of see how that goes. And it may be that in the future, we decide to put all of our ESG money into just rental assistance and utility. But this year we just decided let's match what the state was doing and not reinvent the wheel. So that's kind of what's going on with the ESG.
Allison, real quick question on my side. So if I heard you the right way, you're basically saying that they still go through the same application process as they would through the state,
Yeah.
not through us.
Exactly.
And we're just kind of mirroring what the state approves for them.
Yes.
And so I guess my question is, what's the premise behind the counties actually receiving the funds now?
I actually just got off the phone with our HUD rep because we're putting together recommendations for Congress on how to make these programs more functional because there are just a lot of regulations that make it hard to get things done. And his recommendation, his recommendation was that he's like, I don't think counties should be in the ESG business. He's like, I really think it should just stay together at the state and go straight to the continuum of care because now we're just like a middleman and they don't even really give us admin money to run it. So now my same staff with the same amount of manpower is doing a whole nother program. So that's why we said, what's the most efficient way to do it? Let's just mirror the state. But we still have to contract, which means we have to go through legal and risk management, and I mean, it is a burden. And then our team has to do checks, and it's a lot for us when they're just going to get the same amount of money. And you can't decline federal money. We wouldn't want to, but you also don't want to do that because then HUD will say, oh, you don't want our grants? So if they're going to give it to us, we'll take it. But our recommendation would be to just consolidate this money. It's only $150,000, and it just is it's an administrative burden, I think, to do it.
So there are no funds, there are no allocations for its administrative costs?
It's tiny. It's like 5.5%. So it wasn't like enough to create a position. And actually, since we're talking about how are we doing it, we have an MPA intern from the university. So Kennedy Henderson is here. She's fantastic. So she is finishing her MPA. Actually, we get to see her present, tomorrow night? Thursday night. So she's been doing a couple projects for us, but she actually, because we just didn't have the bandwidth. So we got her on board, and then she helped me build the policies and procedures and kind of get this out the door.
Great
So,
use of resources.
yes, we are very proud of our internship program. It's been a good fit for us.
All right, Ms. Newton, you recognize.
Thank you. I didn't even raise my hand.
But I saw it in your
my
eyes,
face had
ma'am.
questions.
I saw it in your eyes.
Thank you. This is a wonderful update, and just, I can't speak for what other people experience, but I run into a lot of people who need exactly this type of rental assistance, and the county has a history of helping in this area. I just wanted to clarify, because I do get a lot of calls
Yeah.
about this. When you said that the Salvation Army and Cooperative Ministry had funds now, did you mean now, or do you mean after this vote now?
Like-
Like when's now? Like tomorrow?
Now,
Okay.
yes. So it's there. So the way this all works, we have our annual plan, right? So that comes to you guys every July. And in the annual action plan, you guys had already built a budget and said, this is how much we want to go to homeless prevention, and this is how much we want to go to shelters. And then all we did was use the state formula. So these are the only entities in the entire county that were even eligible for ESG. And then we supplemented their funding. So they already have an agreement, and they have the money.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, yep.
Ms. Barron, you recognize.
Thank you, and thank you for the update. This is definitely good information and good news. So when I look at this spreadsheet that's before us, and we're looking at cooperative ministries, and you said Salvation Army, the amounts that they have available for the renters assistance program or the utilities program, what is it? I don't think that's.
It's on here. So it's technically in ESG language, it's called homeless prevention, because it's keeping people from getting to that point. So
Okay.
you see that Cooperative's entire allocation is homeless prevention, and Salvation Army as well. That is the total amount of our award that went to homeless prevention. And so one thing that we could entertain, so this is our 23 and 24 money, because it took us a while to get the bandwidth to even just get it out the door. If we get it, hopefully, we'll get our HUD allocation letter in a couple of weeks. If they give us another ESG award, we could continue with this. That's totally fine. Or if the county wanted to say, let's put all of our money in homeless prevention, we could tag it and only give it to the ones who are doing that program. And then we're not, running, but it's there. It's our money, it's there, and it could be for our people. And I will say this, in the public comment period, Richland 2's social worker, Abby Cobb, reached out and gave us some great feedback about what she's seeing at the schools, and they have a rental assistance and utility assistance program as a district. They set aside $20,000 a year. They have a board, and that's what they're doing to try to help their families. And so when we talked to her, because she was like, can we have some money for our thing? And we thought, well, it could be that we put ESG money in one pot and let each district have a piece of it. So, $50K could be Richland 1 and $50K. So, I mean, there's some options that we could do here. So this is to at least we only have 2 years to spend this too. So we're trying to get this out the door, get it where it's needed, and then we can figure out if we get another allocation. We may not, but if HUD gives us another ESG allocation, there's an opportunity there to build something.
And one final question, Mr. Chair.
Amen.
And that is, how is it determined, you may not know this may be more of a question for Salvation Army or Cooperative Ministries, but how is it determined, what portion of their rent will be paid? Because if you look at it, if you just say that we have 23 people that come and their rent is $1,000, we could easily, that money could be gone quite quickly. So is there a formula, or is that some information? And if you need to get that
Yeah, I
information
need
from
to get
them
it.
and give it back to us, that would be helpful, because as we are
That way
sharing
you'll
this
know.
information, I don't want to paint an unrealistic picture that individuals will think that they're going to go down to Cooperative Ministries and get their entire rent paid, but we can let them know whatever those particulars are so that they could be expecting that type of assistance.
I think that's a great question. What I can say is that ESG has rules, and so one of the things, and they're used to running these with ESG, so that was good for us, but they are only allowed to help families who have a demonstrated emergency situation. So they have a documentation process where they have to show a job loss or something has happened that has kind of tipped them into that. And they're only allowed to get 3 months worth of assistance. So it's not just one, it's actually 3 months. So I think it's a portion of their whatever it is. So Kennedy, if you'll help tomorrow, let's reach out and get more clarity and for you guys to understand. So that 2023 allocation that you see, the 8,000 and the 23, they have to spend that down by September. So that's now. And then if you, whoever's doing the computer, if you scroll down a little bit, they're getting the allocation again in 24, and that money, they have a little more time. So that's a good amount of money for us to see how it goes. And if it's successful, then we could look at putting more of our money into homeless prevention. But it's hard because we do know these shelters also really just need, some of them need repair work, some of them need operating funds, some of them need food. I mean, it's a lot of need. Mhm.
Go ahead, man.
Okay, so other grant, the big boy, CDBG. So update for kind of what's going on there, and I'll just to point out, Marcus Smith is here. So this is our CDBG grant analyst. So he's the primary person that runs this program for us. So, you know, we put an annual action plan together. We're in the middle of putting it together right now to bring to you in June for the next set of projects. So the projects that are in the works right now were vetted this time last year, then brought to you all in June and July, and then we go through the process of contracting, environmentals, whatever. One of the projects that we recommended for funding, and we were so excited about it for last year, was with Vital Connections at the Midlands. So that's a nonprofit child care provider with a couple of locations across the county. And so the way our process works is we put out the notice of funding, we give them all the guidelines about what we're required, and HUD grants are a lift. So an organization has to really be ready to go when we want to do these projects. So they came to us with the idea of actually today, where we were in Hopkins, their location is called Tender Years. And they applied to acquire the building where they had been renting for quite some time, and they had been doing the maintenance work, and the church at the time was positioned to sell them the building. So they had been working with this church, the church was going to sell it, we were going to use our money to help them own their building outright and do some rehab work on it. And just for different reasons, it just never got off the ground. So in the fall, after we'd been approved by you guys and we were heading into trying to get contracting, the church backed out and said that they didn't want to do the sale anymore. And so then we said, well, we could still do some repair work there, but the church would have to be willing to then be part of the contract. So then we'd have to have rules on there and a restrictive covenant. And so we went through some back and forth, and we did a lot of legwork, maybe more than we normally would have, to try to support the project, and it just couldn't get off the ground. And so unfortunately, we've had to rescind the award. It was $205,000 because we're a year away from when they applied for it and saying that it was shovel ready, and they still weren't in a position to even do the environmental review. And so from our standpoint with CDBG, we're only allowed to sit on a certain amount of CDBG. There's something called a timeliness test, and if you don't make it, it's not good. And so $205,000 just sitting there is really going to hurt our timeliness there. And so we've already spoken with them, and they understood, and they just didn't have the capacity to run it the way we needed it to be run. And so what we're essentially saying is that we're going to have to amend that plan. So by HUD's rules, we have to do something called a substantial amendment. So we'll go through a public process, we'll put it out for the community, and recommend a different project, bring that back to you all, and amend the plan that was written last summer. And so you can see here, we have a couple of opportunities there in the last section. I don't know their page number, but I have reallocation opportunities. One opportunity that was brought to us is, you may know that there was a brush truck that was totaled and damaged in a wildfire out there in Lower Richland. So the Station 22 there that's behind Lower Richland High School lost a brush truck. That's a great fit for a CDBG project. It would be very quick to spin down because the environmental is really quick. It's a pretty straightforward procurement process, and then we could get the money spent down in time for timeliness. We also have an opportunity for First Steps Child Care Center, but they need some assistance with windows and HVAC, and they applied and it scored really high last year, so we know it's like a great fit project. And then we also have a local youth shelter that's really in need of some maintenance to their facility. And so as a staff, we were going to kind of vet these out and see if maybe there's a good fit project for this money. And then we'll go through a substantial amendment process and bring an idea back to you all for the $205,000 that we have to take away from the original project and put into something else that's eligible. So that's just kind of the update. The other projects are going great. It's just one that just didn't make it.
Questions?
Yes. Yeah, there's, do that.
That it?
That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you. Every time you guys present and bring information to us, is very knowledgeable, and you can feel the passion. So we appreciate that. Thanks a lot. So on to item number 5A. We like to welcome Chair Mackey to our committee meeting.
She's agitating you.
She needs to behave. All right. So items for action, 5A, I move to direct the county administrator to research and present options for Richland County to enact the hate ordinance. Mr. Brown, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'll just simply say my understanding is that you've been provided with a draft, and we're calling it a draft because you haven't accepted it yet, of the hate crimes ordinance language. And so really at this point, my understanding is that would be anything you want to add or take away would be what we would hear from you. And with that being done, then the recommendation would be for you to approve whatever version of the ordinance that you have decided on to move this on to full council if you were ready to do that.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
I don't have a
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question about the draft, but I do have a question about the fiscal and budgetary matters. It says that there are costs associated with training individuals to positively identify a hate crime. But then it also goes on to outline that there are some no-cost options. I guess my question is, if the stakeholders who choose not to utilize the no-cost options, does the staff have an estimate on what it would cost for training implementation, or will the cost be absorbed within the existing budgets of the stakeholders? And I guess that'd be the sheriff, the solicitor's office.
Councilwoman Little?
Absolutely.
Mr. Brown?
No, go right ahead, anybody, I can.
Councilwoman Little, you recognize?
So I spoke with Sheriff Lott just a few minutes ago, and there will be no cost added for them for the training because this train the trainer is what they actually do on with their yearly training cycles anyway. So Sheriff Lott said that there would be no added costs on their side. And as far as the programs, he also stated that you're looking at PTI. If it's anybody that's an offender that's from 17 and under, then he has a camp that they can actually go to as well.
And the reason why we put that, I would call it ancillary cost in, is because we just wanted to communicate that if there were the need, and we felt like because it would be something new that we were putting on, there may be a reason where folks felt like we need to have someone come in and do that. And so we just wanted to say there may be some cost. We didn't want to make it seem like potentially there was zero, because where there was time or energy or resources that are not normally contributed to this work that would now be there. We just wanted to acknowledge that, but we did not have, we didn't think it was a hard cost of a larger sum of money. We just wanted to be communicative about there would be just some costs even associated with just the time expenditure that is not currently being utilized to address this particular thing. So it was de minimis, I guess is the right word to use. The cost would be de minimis. We just did not use that language in the document.
Go ahead, ma'am. Okay. Yes,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir. Mr. Wright, you recognize?
Yes, and I just wanted to emphasize that this is actually, that with the hate crimes ordinance or the hate intimidation ordinance, this acts as an enhancement to any other potential crime. So it doesn't stand on its own. For example, if this can be used to enhance if someone, say, is there an assault. So there has to be an underlying crime first, like an assault or burglary or something, whatever it is, and this will be an enhancement for that. So it will never stand on its own.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Councilwoman Newton, you recognize?
Thank you. And Mr. Wright, we discussed this before, and so I just have a question, and this question is by no means to derail anything that's here. So even with the strikeout that we have, the third paragraph says, whereas the County of Richland is responsible for protecting the health, safety, and welfare of those in its community and for enacting ordinances not inconsistent with the Constitution and the general law of the state. And it just has a weird double negative that we're enacting things that are not inconsistent. And I just wondered if for the purposes of this ordinance, it would be appropriate to be worded affirmatively and positively that we're enacting laws and ordinances that are consistent.
Well, I think the reason it was worded that way is because initially it had prohibited by law. And so instead of having it say prohibited, wanted to make sure that it's clear that it's something that is in line or doesn't contradict either state law or the Constitution. So that's why it says it's not inconsistent with the Constitution or any other like state laws.
And I mean, and I think to me, and I'm not an attorney, it seems to mean the same thing, that it's not inconsistent or that it is consistent with. So I just wanted to ask if that wording it positively would also work, but if it doesn't, or if it's cumbersome or whatever, it's not an issue for me. I'm not used to double negatives like that. Okay. The attorneys say they are, so that's.
Close to our hearts.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Ms. Barron, you recognize.
Thank you. I just have a comment and just want to share a very brief incident that took place with to me personally not so very long ago. And I think it says to why this ordinance is important. There was an individual who had approached me on social media and was saying some very harsh things that could have easily been supported and even criminal charges could have taken place had we had an ordinance like this. And it was a very scary time for my children and myself. And so, to see that we now are doing something that can help the sheriff's department or the solicitor's office really move forward in prosecuting individuals who are trying to hurt people based upon, for me, it was based upon my race. And I'm happy to say that, I thank Councilwoman Little for bringing this forward so that, I would never want someone to experience what I experienced, to know that there was an individual that was threatening to harm me and my children. And there was nothing that the sheriff's department could do to support this. So it's a really big deal for me. And I think that this will definitely be the push that perhaps the state even would, I'm looking forward to them supporting something like this as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. Anyone else have any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Been moved and properly seconded. Any more discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, could you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Aline.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. On to item 5B, Community Planning and Development, Conservation Fund Easement, Cabin Creek Property. This is an executive session item. Mr. Wright?
Yes, this matter is pursuant to SC Code Section 30-4-70A2, and it is for executive session.
Mr. Wright, will we be out of order if we took up item C before we take this executive session item up?
No, sir.
Okay, let's move to item 5C, grants and community outreach home projects with Columbia Housing Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you can recognize again the passion
Absolutely,
of
sir.
CDBG.
Come on down, man.
Well, this actually home. This is the other one. We're doing something with all HUD grants tonight. Okay, so Home Investment Partnership is the other HUD grant that we get. It is predominantly for the development of affordable housing. It has an expiration as well, so we get that annual allocation and then the funds have to be expended before the deadline. We have $137,000 in home funds that will expire this September. And the reason why they're still in our line of credit, which is what we call it, because essentially HUD puts the money there in their distribution system, we expend it, and then we'll draw down the reimbursement. So it's like a net zero to the county. We're just kind of like the pass-through. So the funds are on our line of credit because a few years ago, a home that was developed with that money, essentially the subrecipient that worked with the county at the time lost control of the property because the homeowner that purchased the home foreclosed. And maybe some of the paperwork was not there to make sure that it was, restrictive covenant or something to catch it before it went into foreclosure. And whenever a subrecipient or the county loses control of a property, there has to be that repayment. So the subrecipient repaid the funds to the county, and then we return the funds to HUD, and then HUD says reinvest them. So we're asking now to move forward with the project that we've been developing since December. So I want to recognize Adrienne Jackson here. She's not in green today, as you can see. She's our manager of housing. She's one of our longest running community development team members. She's like the institutional knowledge and such a gift. But so we've been working on this project with the Housing Authority since the fall. And so it's kind of potentially part of a bigger project, but we sort of just want to start with a few and see how it goes. So you may know that the Housing Authority is going through something called a RAD conversion, which essentially is that they're getting out of like the property ownership space. And so there's several strategies, but one of them is called Section 32, and that's for all the single-family homes that they have control over. And so scattered throughout the county, there are 150 single-family homes that belong to the Housing Authority right now. Some of them are nuisance properties for your areas. Some of them are boarded up. Some of them, some of them are going to have to be torn down. So a lot of different estates. So I've got a map in there with your materials. You'll see kind of where they all shift out. So what we are looking at is essentially the Section 32 means that they're evaluating all 150 properties. The ones that can be rehabilitated and lived in will go through a rehabilitation process, and then they'll go through a lease to own situation for an eligible family. Some of them are lived in currently. So the current family that lives there, they would be given the opportunity to have their home fixed up and then be able to go through a lease to own situation to buy it. They have a great housing counseling program, and they would do a lot of work to make sure the family was ready for that responsibility. So we're looking at taking 3 of the properties off of the list. These are kind of the first 3 that were ready from their environmental review standpoint. And so what we would like to do is use the money that has to be expended by September to complete the repair work on the homes. And then they would then go through that kind of lease to own situation for an eligible family. I think, I'm trying to remember, I put this together a few weeks ago. So I was trying to remember the districts that they're in, if that's of interest to you. They really were scattered. Say that again? 2, 7, and 9. We didn't put the addresses because there are, privacy concerns. So we didn't put that in there. I will say the areas where we have been getting complaints are Green Lakes and Woodfield. They have a lot of homes that the Housing Authority just hasn't been able to keep up. So what we're looking at is if we start with 3, see how it goes. If it's successful, then we could tackle another few with some HUD money and see if there's maybe an opportunity for us to kind of solve a couple of problems at once and create potentially, 100 home ownership opportunities for LMI families out kind of scattered throughout.
Who would they lease the house from?
Say that again?
Who
would lease it?
Who would they lease it from?
Oh, yeah, so the Housing Authority would still be the entity that holds it until,
Okay,
but they
okay.
have to, that's a great question. So they have to agree to purchase it within 3 years. And some families are ready to go right now. So you may see some of these houses could be bought quickly. Others may say, I want to lease it for 1 more year before I purchase, but the agreement has to be within 3 years. And the other thing that's interesting is that each of these families within a housing authority property has a voucher. So a housing choice voucher to assist with rent right now. The voucher will transition into a mortgage assistance voucher on the other side of the closing, so that they're still getting that kind of subsidy assistance into the purchase of the home.
All right, Councilman Weaver, I recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple questions. I was interested, I didn't know the county had anything like this, this lease to own. Let me check into this a little more. So my questions are, what percentage of folks that enter into this actually end up closing on something?
I don't know if I could even tell you, the housing authority, they work with thousands of people, right?
Okay.
So but the people who actually, so Section 32, they've been in the home ownership space of helping people move to home ownership, but they haven't been doing a lot of that lease to own. So
Okay.
this is sort of a new, I think, avenue for how they're offloading their inventory, essentially. But what our questions were, and our HUD consultants really wanted to make sure, is that they wanted to make sure the families really understood the responsibility of home ownership, because if you've been in that tenant mindset for a long time and you're always looking to someone to do that maintenance and to take care of things, it can mean that you create more problems in these areas where the houses aren't kept up. And so they have said that they're going to, that they have a program that's going to make sure these people are ready to go. And my guess is that I don't think we know yet how many people will successfully go from lease to own, but hopefully they are making it in that 3-year period.
Well, having done this for 25 years, if they have any questions, they can call me.
Okay.
So I'll give them a couple pointers, but, okay, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Hey, thank you for being here. The lease to own arrangement that you're describing, are we talking, is the title gonna stay in the housing authority until the full purchase price is paid?
Yes. So the property will belong, we would invest the money to renovate the houses. The housing authority would continue to own it. They have a development corporation arm, so it's kind of like it'll stay with the Housing Authority Development Corporation. They'll be in an agreement with whoever moves into that house under the lease to own situation. And then when the family's ready to close, then the property just would transfer to that family. And they would have to mortgage, so they're going to have to qualify. The other thing is that we have a down payment assistance program with our home money as well. So the idea is that these families, when they're ready, we would assist with the down payment assistance, or the state if they go that route. And then they would have to get a traditional loan and close on the house just like anybody else would.
Within 3 years?
Within 3 years. And remember, they have their current voucher, that's the rental assistance voucher, that would stay with them, assuming they're still kind of in that LMI area, category and all of that.
Great, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, we are asking to approve staff's recommendation as presented in the packet.
Heard it. Staff's recommendation.
Oh, Mr. Chair.
It's been moved
Second.
and properly seconded. No discussion needed. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Aline.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, so back to item 5B, Community Planning and Development, Conservation Fund easement, Cabin Creek Properties. Mr. Wright?
Yes, it's prepared for executive session pursuant to 30-4-70A2.
And I entertain a motion for executive session.
So move, Mr. Chair, for item.
Second.
All right. Properly seconded. No discussion. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Little, Livingston, Weaver,
Yes.
Aline.
Yes.
Motion approved.
We're now in executive session.
Mr. Chair, do you want to clear the chambers, or how do you want us to proceed?
From staff and from our attorney on this matter. There was no votes taken in executive session. And recognizing Mr. Epps, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, sir. The Conservation Commission and staff recommend a purchase that we sell an easement on the 734.43 acres.
Hold on one second, Mr. Epps. Can you may continue, Mr. Epps. I apologize for that.
So the Conservation Commission and staff recommend that we sell an easement on 734.43 acres in the Cabin Branch area that we purchased many years ago for conservation purposes and mitigation banking. And the details of that is all in your agenda. I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to talk about outside of executive session. But that's the basics. If you have any questions, I'll certainly answer those.
Do you have any questions, comments? Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So the simple question that you have before you now is, whether or not you would take any action on staff's recommendations regarding this item tonight. And so the floor is yours, Mr. Chair, to make any decisions or not if the council or the body would like to make, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I entertain a motion.
Chairman, I think you're looking for a motion to call the question.
Sir?
I'll make that motion.
Oh, we need,
No?
there's no
Oh.
motion to call the
Oh,
question.
okay.
We
Well, then I retract that.
I would say, since we're at this current time looking at all the county properties and trying to do some kind of assessment and so forth, my motion would be that we hold off on the sale of this until we find out more about the various needs and assessment of the current county properties.
Okay, you heard the motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Any discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, call for the vote. Yes.
Yes. Livingston.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Aline.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My understanding is that after we do a comprehensive review of the county's properties, we'll come back to you at a future date, and you will have this item before you at that time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you and your staff for your information, sir. All right, with that being said, I entertain a motion for item number 6 on the agenda.
Move that we adjourn?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly second, and I'm sure we don't have any discussion about that. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please? Yes.
Little. Yes. Livingston.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.